I just gonna. So hello everybody, and welcome to October's edition of the Cando Youth Connect. I always like to start by introducing myself in my traditional language, which is Blackfoot. So Oki Nisto Adoniko Bunigyayo. What I just basically said is, hello everybody, my Blackfoot name is Elkbear, but my English name is Nathan Crow, and I'm the current National Student Director with Cando, and I'm also a fourth-year student at the University of Lethbridge in the Bachelor of Management program, majoring in Indigenous Governance and Business Management. I am a proud Blackfoot member of the Kainai First Nation, which is also known as the Blood Tribe. And I'm speaking to you today from Lethbridge, Alberta, which is located in Treaty 7 territory on the traditional lands of my people, the Siksikaate Sitabi, which is also known as the Blackfoot Confederacy. And, I just hope everyone here today is as excited about today's session as I am. I'm really looking forward to hearing from our panelists, today, who were all participants of this year's Cando's Economic Development Youth Summit this year. And all of our panelists will just be telling us a bit about themselves, as well as just sharing their experience and really what they got out of their experience at the Youth Summit. But before I introduce our panel and we get into things today, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to our sponsors, CIBC, Farm Credit Canada, Kiera Resources, and Cooperatives First, as the Cando Youth Connect is made possible through their generous support. I also wanted to mention that for anyone in attendance here today, that there will be an evaluation sent out at the end of our presentation today. And if you could please be so kind to fill out those evaluations, it would be very appreciated and just very helpful for us at Cando. But we're actually going to show a short video presented. Yeah, we're going to show a short video before we get into the question portion.
My name is Ray Wanich. I'm the Executive Director of Cando. Been with the organization since the early 90s. Loved it then, love it now. We help build capacity from coast to coast to coast for economic development officers working in Indigenous community economic development. Friendship, relationship building, it's an investment on many fronts in them, but in our future as a society, as a world, to create a better life for ourselves and our children.
Oki Nistonadonigo Bunigyayo. English name is Nathan Crow. I'm the current National Student Director with Cando. My experience with this committee has been very fulfilling. Just knowing that my input is actually being valued and actually being taken to the table. I hope that the youth take away inspiration as well as knowledge and skills in terms of economic development that they can eventually bring to their home communities in the future. Initiatives like this that Cando puts on are so amazing because it gives us the ability as youth to network with other youth across the country. Initiatives like this really are why I love staying involved with Cando, and I'm so appreciative and blessed to be involved with this event.
So yeah, that was just an overview of our Economic Development Youth Summit, and just a highlight video that was filmed at this year's Economic Development Youth Summit. And I mean, I know that it was one of those marketing videos or one of those highlight videos why I first got involved with Cando. So I just, I really appreciate, I guess, that component that, we can really look back and really reflect on our experience that we had there, which is also why we're here today. So I'm just going to now start by introducing our special guests today, our panelists, starting with Kathleen Doxtator. So Kathleen is an Oneida woman living and working in her community of the Oneida Nation. Kathleen actively participates in language revitalization, community well-being, politics, and lifelong learning. Kathleen's professional career is in the education sector as a new Indigenous education teacher on special assignment role for the Thames Valley District School Board. Previously, Kathleen taught the Oneida language and has been elected as a counselor from 2016 to 2022. Kathleen has a variety of interests, including creating beaded jewelry, makeup artistry, and Indigenous activism. Kathleen enjoys working with Indigenous youth and challenges the multiple systems that continue to disadvantage them. Indigenous youth are falling through the cracks, and Kathleen is doing everything she can, personally and professionally, to raise Indigenous youth. Kathleen hosts the podcast Divine Resolutions, where she holds conversations for all things that make her happy and shares her experience as a young Indigenous professional. And so really looking forward to hearing from Kathleen in a bit here, but I'm just going to now introduce our next panelist, who is Bianca Buffalo. So Bianca is a 28-year-old Cree woman born and raised in Samson Cree Nation, which is in Treaty 6 territory. She is a proud mother and surrogate mother who has dedicated her life as a funeral director, embalmer, death doula, and Indigenous funerary advocate. Bianca is immensely passionate about the work that she does, and she believes that there is a space for Indigenous people in the death care profession. Our next panelist is Daniel Nychuk. Daniel is a Métis man and the youngest of 3 siblings. He grew up on a family farm in Osborne, Manitoba. Daniel recently completed a Bachelor of Commerce honors degree in accounting and finance from the Asper School of Business and is enrolled at the University of Winnipeg's Masters in Development Practice Indigenous Development program. An interesting fact about Daniel is that he enjoys all sports, specifically maintaining a passion for hockey, where he still plays for his local senior hockey team, as well as coach his former high school hockey team. And then our final panel member is Brayden Omeasoo-Steinhauer. Thanks for that, giving us a wave there. So Brayden is a proud member of the Ermineskin Cree Nation, located in the Maskwacis community. In his nation, he is the Youth Advisory Board member for NGIC, the corporate division of Ermineskin. He is currently in his 3rd year of obtaining a Bachelor of Education with the University of Alberta. Brayden is passionate about Indigenous business and education and hopes to be a resilient and transformational leader who will advocate for Indigenous people and all peoples in his future career. So as you can see, or I guess as you can hear, we have some amazing panelists, that will be speaking with us today and sharing their experience with the economic development and just sharing some, advice that they have for anyone in attendance here. But, I'm going to give them a chance to tell them from their own perspective, and we'll hear from themselves now. So I'm going to be asking a list of questions to our panelists, but I'm going to start with Kathleen. And the first question is just, how did you hear of the Economic Development Youth Summit, and what made you want to apply?
Thanks, Nathan, for introducing all of us and for that question. So like you said, I got caught by those Facebook ads. I was like, and it started with a Cando Youth Connect that I went to, and Audrey was at the time, she was hosting, and I was like, wow, and it just kind of looped you in to know more what Cando is about. And so that was really helpful. And when the opportunity came up, I was like, why not? I've done a variety of economic development, kind of youth summits, more one-day summits with my community, and help on the planning and organizing end. And in 2018, I was able to go to, they call it YES, the Young Entrepreneur Symposium, when they had it in Toronto. And so it was really a good opportunity to work with fellow Indigenous youth and have like a project objective. So when I heard that's kind of how Cando was running it, I was excited to apply and work with my peers and produce something. So that's how I heard about it, and that's why I decided to apply. Thank you.
Sorry, everyone. I was just talking away. I was on mute there. But yeah, I completely agree, Kathleen, that the Facebook ads and the marketing in general is so great with Cando. And that's really what, I guess, looped me in. And then we share a similar experience where, again, I was, my first experience being involved with Cando was at the Cando Youth Connect with Aubrey and Sam. I'm just basically like reiterating what you said, right? Like think we have similar experiences, I guess. But I'm just gonna now ask the same question, but to Bianca. So I'll just repeat the question. So how did you hear about the Economic Development Youth Summit, and what made you want to apply?
Sure. So thank you very much for having me today. I'm really happy to be here. So what happened was 3 years ago, give or take, I was at a workshop at Samson Cree Nation, my community, and the workshop was on Indigenous entrepreneurship. So I found that to be just such a wealth of knowledge, and it was just a really great week. But what happened is a representative from Cando actually came to speak to us and let us know that the youth summit is a thing, and that she encouraged everyone that could apply to apply. So and then COVID happened. And I had my eye on it every year following, and it just so happened that this year was the perfect time to apply. So the same day that registration's open, I was waiting to submit my application, and I couldn't be more happy that I did. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Bianca. And I mean, I agree 100%. I was really looking forward to the youth summit, and it went above my expectations for sure. And I mean, I gained so many good connections there, including everyone on the call here today. So yeah, thank you so much for that. And now I'll just ask Daniel, the same question.
Hi, yeah, and thanks for having me on today and giving me an opportunity to share my experiences and stories. Yeah, it's kind of a different story than everyone else. I hadn't really known what Cando was before the summit, and I got an email from a career counselor in my master development practice program. And I looked into it, and as part of my program, I get the ETA-ED certification because it's one of the accredited programs. And so I looked more into Cando and what it was, and then looked on the website to see like past youth summits and to also see who was presenting this year. And I saw an interest in all of that. So I wanted to put myself out there, because it's usually a situation I don't put myself in. I tend to be shy, and this was kind of the first in-person conference I was able to attend. So I was really fortunate to do that. And I'm still happy I did that and got the opportunity to do this. And it was a great experience for myself. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. I mean, so it's funny, you may not think I'm a shy person, but about a year ago, I was very, very shy, and, I had never done any public speaking experience. And I feel like it's through initiatives like this one, like the Youth Summit, and just putting yourself out there, it really helps build your skills, and maybe you find something that you're good at that you didn't think you were good at before. So I completely agree with what you said. So thank you. Now just gonna move on to Brayden.
Hi, Nathan. First, I'd like to thank you for those beautiful introductions. And I'd like to acknowledge that I'm here sitting with a bunch of amazing youth today. I would also like to say, there was a lot of, in this conference, there was a lot of other amazing Indigenous youth. This conference is one to look forward to. So I guess, how did I hear of this conference? I actually heard of it on Facebook for the past 2 years. It was online the past 2 years, and my mom tagged me. She said, Brayden, join, and I kind of didn't want to, because at that time I didn't see myself going into economic development. So I'm like, no. but it was actually this past year where I started to get an interest in business and entrepreneurship. So I joined the Indigenous coaching program facilitated by Kendall Netmaker. And in that program, they were able to present on what is the Economic Development Youth Summit, what it entails and what we should look forward to. And so after that presentation, I was very interested in applying, and I'm so glad I was accepted. This is a one of a kind experience, honestly.
Yeah, thank you, Brayden. I'm really glad to hear that you have, you know, some other, I guess, participants viewing the panel and the session today. It's really great to hear, you know, sharing these resources and stories that you guys are sharing with others, right? Because you never know who you're gonna impact, right? Even on a daily day-to-day occurrence, right? You may not know that you're inspiring somebody just through a normal conversation. So I think it's really great to see that, you know, you're sharing these opportunities with the youth in your community, because yeah, it's just really great to see. So thank you for that, Brayden, and thank you to everyone else for your answers. Really great to hear that we all kind of share similar, I guess, similar components of how we got connected with Cando, right? So I'm just gonna now run to, or I guess ask the second question, and I'll just go in the same order, just to keep things, I guess, consistent. So Kathleen, what was what was a highlight from your week at the Youth Summit?
Yeah, that's a hard question because there was so much, right? There was, like, even looking back at that the highlight video, you're just reminded of all those good feelings. Like anytime that we were able to learn more about the culture of the place that we're in was really a highlight for me. So like being out on the land and being at the buffalo paddock was really awesome. But I, like, when I was writing my notes earlier for this, I was kind of like, you know, it was kind of the highlight was like when the presentation was done, because it was really just like stressful because we wanted to do well, right? Like you when you're spending a whole week working on this, like you're putting a lot into it and a lot of hours that we spent in the evenings to get it done. And so like kind of like when you have that like sigh of relief at the end. So that was one too, like of the highlights, but there was many.
Thank you for I guess identifying one highlight, because I agree it's so hard to choose one, right? But yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I could definitely, I wasn't participating in the case competition myself, but I could definitely I seen everyone's relief, I guess, once the presentations were over, because I mean that's what the whole week was building up to, right? So I'm sure it was a relief just having that over with and being proud of that accomplishment, right? So yeah, I'm just gonna go down the list. And so Bianca, what was one highlight from the week?
So to kind of reiterate what Kathleen had said, the relief that I felt after finally presenting was amazing. And it wasn't necessarily my highlight, but it was a good feeling. So the and it's there's so many things to choose from. Where do I even begin? So it wasn't necessarily the networking, it wasn't necessarily the resources, it wasn't necessarily the good medicine, the experiences of different cultures and things like that. Honestly, the highlight for me was sitting in the airport after in tears. I was in tears because I fully understood and believed and felt that there is a place for me in this world, in this society, and in this country and province, and wherever I am, that there's a space for me. And I really think that the whole experience at the youth summit, thanks to Cando, really gave me that. So I think that was my highlight.
Thanks for that, Bianca. You just reminded me of my experience going home. Like, I don't live far, right, from Calgary, which is where it was hosted. I live about 2 hours, and that drive home was just nothing but, yeah, reflecting on like the memories and the laughs that we shared throughout the conference. And so I completely agree with that statement there. So yeah, I'll just keep going down the list here. So Daniel, what was one highlight from your week?
Yeah, much like Kathleen and Bianca were saying, it's very difficult to pick one. I really like that the reflection part, that was nice too. But I had one here on my notes before, and it was definitely the networking side. I got to meet a lot of good Indigenous youth, as well as my group members were all great people and awesome to hang around with, because you're spending a lot of time with them during the weekend. And it just so happened that out of luck, we had a very great group, and so we still keep in touch today. And that's something that I really liked about the summit. And also, yeah, just networking with everyone was a great experience.
Yeah, no, I agree, right? It's it brings a lot of pride to know that no matter where you are, like in the country, right, there's like-minded people who you can share like connections with, right? And just feel like I guess feel that connection, right? Because that was my experience also, right? So yeah, thanks for that that input there, Daniel. Now, last but not least, Brayden, what was one highlight from your week?
I'm gonna be a repeater and say I couldn't choose one, but I guess I'm gonna actually say two. I'm gonna cheat. So my first highlight of the week was actually looking forward to all the information and the presentations. You know, I wanted to be a sponge. I wanted to immerse myself in all this knowledge, all this economic development, business, all the personal development I could take in from this conference. You know, we had a wide range of topics given to us, such as economic development, the many different industries and business sectors. You know, they also Cando did a really great job in taking care of our wellness. They had a wellness director there on site, and they had some early mornings with, I believe it was Bianca. So I felt well there. So my second, I guess, highlight was, you know, meeting all the people and networking. I was able to establish relationships with the participants we have here, as well as the ones who cannot join us today, as well as Candy staff, all the presenters, and I guess the committee. I myself, I'm very relational. I believe that us as Indigenous people, we're relational beings. And I'm very grateful to have established those relationships.
Yeah, thanks for highlighting that, Brayden. I think that's, well, I mean, because I'm going to comment on your first highlight in just like taking in and being a sponge, right? It's I feel like that's so important, and not even necessarily like retaining all the knowledge, right? Because that's near impossible to do, but even just sparking an interest, right? Or sparking something like that you didn't know about and maybe you can learn about later. I know that's what happened for me for a lot of the various workshops and presentations that were presented to us, you know, because I'm not an expert in no means in like economic development or in lands development or whatever, right? So it's just all about finding something that you are interested in. And I feel like these types of events are so good for that, right? Because there's a wide range of topics that they cover. So yeah, thanks for highlighting that. Just gonna move on to the next question here now, which is for Kathleen. What would be a dream project for your community? Or yeah, what would be your dream project for your community?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I have a lot of ideas, and like for me as like a creative person who likes to create stuff, and like I didn't feel like through my education I was really like allowed or like encouraged to explore other like art forms. And so like having a creative space where it doesn't have to just be like, you know, painting or drawing or like very stereotypical art forms. Like I picture like having like a maker space and a center, like a multi-use, like where you can do other things, but like having, whether it's like a little cafe or something like that. Like, so part of our project was like mixed use. And so like that kind of inspired me too to to really like look into that and see what are some possibilities for my community and what could be feasible to generate revenue and whatnot. So just having a space where people can come in, create stuff, like have a gift shop. So like kind of that mentality, like community, a social enterprise, in the sense that like if people are making something, that they could also like make one for themselves and then make one to leave, or like build skills and then be able to hire more within the community would be a goal of mine, because that aligns with kind of like my small business in terms of like being guided by your gifts. Because I feel like, you know, through the process of colonization, we've been really disconnected from our natural gifts and disconnected from our identities a little bit. So getting back in tune with that and really understanding just some of those gifts that we're given from creator, and how we can really harness those and make those work for us and work with us, and then share those gifts. So that's kind of like a center for that would be my goal project for my community, because, you know, my community is like predominantly young people. Like I think our last community population demographics were like almost like 50% under 30. Like our community is very young. And so knowing that there's not a lot of stuff for our young people, like, yeah, we have our park and our community center, but there's not a lot of programming going on. That's not like outside of the band funding programming that we have. So it makes it really challenging to like, so having a center in community where people can be creative would really be an outlet, I think, for a lot of young people. So that's something that I hope to work towards in the next, 10, 15 years to have that developed. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think that's so important, that you mentioned having that creative space and, the effects that, I guess, colonization had on us as Indigenous peoples, right? Because sometimes we forget about that and forget about, just like that component of our identity, right? Finding that balance between, succeeding in the Western world while still holding on to your identity and your culture as an Indigenous person. That's something I value highly as well. And something, so I really glad you mentioned that. Thank you. Just going to move down to Bianca now. What would be a dream project for your community?
So I feel like you already all know what I'm going to say. One thing that I really feel, especially the bigger reserves, the bigger communities, there's no denying the fact that we are always in a constant state of mourning for various reasons, for various losses. And we don't get to understand why, but we can help, we can be there. And the countless funds and revenues that are going to neighboring communities is something that I just feel that is wrong. And I really believe that my dream and my purpose in this world is to advocate for Indigenous communities, especially the vulnerable ones, on funerary supports, resources, and proper care of our loved ones. So the end goal and the goal for me, and it's not necessarily somewhere where I have to stop once I get there, is to open a funeral home on my reserve, because there's a space for us in this world, and we need to be okay with taking that responsibility back. We need to be okay with caring for our loved ones who have passed away. So I really think that that's my purpose in this world, and my dream is to give back to my community in that way.
I think it's so important that you mentioned that, Bianca. And I mean, every time you've spoken so far on these questions, I've tried to not say, like, not mention your like what your guys' project was, I guess, at the youth summit, right? It's like, I'm trying to stay away from that because that's our next question. But I'm so glad that you mentioned, the different things that you did mention, about we're in a constant state of mourning, and just about reclaiming, that aspect of ourselves, right? I think that's so important, because you're so right that we are in a constant state of mourning. And I feel like, it's a missed opportunity, because meaning like not having a funeral home on your own reserve and owned by your own community, because, I know from firsthand experience, all of the business goes to the surrounding communities, right? And it goes back to that economic leakage, right? And it just feels like that's a big step we can take towards reclaiming, part of our nationhood and ourselves as a culture, because you're so right. And so many of the things that you mentioned here today, as well as in your presentation at the Youth Summit, really, touched something inside me that brought up emotions. And I feel like it was not only for myself, it was for everyone that was listening to you speak, because I feel like it's something we don't always think about, is the death and the funeral component, right? It's something we maybe try not to think about, but it's something that's really in front of our face, and we have to think about, and we have to, take initiatives and make initiatives towards that, because yeah, you're just so right. And I'm kind of rambling on here now, so I'll move on to Daniel. But yeah, thank you so much for that, Bianca. But Daniel, what was or what would be a dream project for your community?
Yeah, this one was one that I can't really pick one or a certain direction. I know through my current studies, I get to do a couple work placements as part of it. So that's one where I hope to identify a couple things, but I do want to use my own personal interests and my own experiences and be able to share that with people, and be able to allow them to maybe find connections with that. Like for myself, it comes from sport and wellness. It helps with me mentally, and it provided me many friendships. So anything involved with the sport and recreation, in developing that and ensuring that all youth have the opportunity to experience this, and be able to gain new friendships and be able to do whatever they desire, whatever sport they desire, and provide funding for that and along those type of routes. So to be able to people get the opportunity that I was fortunate enough to be able to experience during my childhood.
Again, I think that's something that really touches me as well, because I grew up playing sports my whole life. I grew up playing hockey, and it's something I didn't think about while I was a youth, right? Is that it is a privilege, and that I am very privileged to experience and to not ever have to worry about, like, how am I going to get to my hockey game or these types of things, right? It's something I didn't think about until I became an adult. And so I feel like it's so important for people like yourself to take on those types of initiatives, because you're right. I feel like it's very important that youth have that chance to participate in sports if that's what they desire, right? Because it's not necessarily about becoming a professional hockey player or professional whatever, right? It's all about that like skill building, and it really helps build those relationships and makes you like a good person, a good well-rounded person. So I think that's something so important, and it's very great, really great to hear that that's something that you're thinking about taking on. So again, not last but not least, Brayden, what would be a dream project for your community?
I often have a lot of ideas, but the one that seems, I guess, more feasible and realistic, I would like to take part in establishing a youth entrepreneurial center that would be able to help guide the youth in every step of the way in their entrepreneurial journey, from their business idea to launching and to ensuring continued support. In this way, we can combat economic leakage in our communities. We could establish strong economies to the neighboring municipalities and cities. I mean, they get all the money, right? And they get all the development with it. Why the youth? Well, I guess us young people have such strong ideas. And the challenge is we don't know where to start. They could start at a youth entrepreneurial center, and we can also incorporate the Indigenous intelligences in their plans, their operations, and governance. Which I find would even straighten their businesses even more, or their organizations. So I guess, yeah, that's my dream project.
Yeah, that's so important, right? Is like, it's so true that the youth are our future, right? And they're our future leaders. So it's so important to invest in them. And I mean, I know I keep saying that every one of your guys' dream projects is something that, you know, really hits home for me because it's the truth. And I mean, I'm not the only person out there who has a variety of interests, right? So I think it's so important for people like yourselves to create these spaces and create that capacity for our youth to, you know, have options for the future, because, you know, you never know what somebody wants to do as a career or what they want to do with their life, basically, right? And I think, you know, really focusing on the youth is something that's not necessarily missed, but I feel like it's something we need to pay closer attention to, because I feel personally like the youth are the ones who have the, you know, a lot of their, I guess, dreams and their goals haven't really been you know, like negatively affected by like the real world, you know what I mean? So they're aiming high, and it's like, it's so great to see. And I feel like it brings me back to a quote I heard recently. I'm just kind of paraphrasing, but it's like, aim for the moon, because even if you miss, you'll still be above the stars, or something like that. But basically, like, aim high, and, you know, because it's very good to, I guess, aim higher than you normally would, right? Because I feel like as adults, or once we start getting into the workforce and the real world, we start I guess being negatively affected by things like red tape, or like the reality of situations, right? So I feel like it's so important to focus on youth. So thanks for that, Brayden. So I'm just gonna move on to the next question here now. Or actually, no, I'm going to ask our audience if anyone has a question for any of our panel members on anything we covered so far. Hearing none, I mean, that's fine. We're going to open it up at the end for, you know, another question and answer portion. So if you want to just hold on to your questions till then, or if you don't have any, that's completely fine. So yeah, I'll just move on to or there's a comment actually. So no questions, just amazing hearing from all of you and the work that you are all doing. And I completely agree with that. So yeah, I'm just gonna move on to the next question here, which is, what was your group's case study? What was your experience from the start of an idea to the presentation at the end of the week? So basically an overall discussion of your experience with the case study and how that went, I guess. Kathleen, sorry.
No worries. Yeah, I think there was a lot to unpack with the case study, because so and just thinking back to the notes that I made, I alluded that, you know, we did do a mixed use, like a commercial and residential like complex that we could have within our parcel of land that we were allotted. That way we were addressing some of the needs of this ideal community that we made. In terms of, like, we know that many First Nations have a housing crisis. Like my community is like that. Like we have only like 500 homes and we need like 500 more within the next like 8 years or something like that. Like the overcrowding within our communities is so high. So that's one area that we wanted to address, and as well as like that economic leakage that, you know, has already been spoken about. That way that there's opportunities for entrepreneurs to rent out the other parts of the building that we were proposing. But yeah, it took a while to get us there, because there were so many ideas, because we did have such a strong team that had so many like good ideas that were really viable. And it was challenging to say, okay, we kind of have no more new ideas, we have to like stick with these ones that we're going with, and get the rest of the work done. Because that was kind of like the challenging part was, like, you know, we could do this, we could do that, but then trying to like scale it back within our budget too. And that's one of the things, like, I don't know how many young people are familiar with, you know, working with these, you know, big budgets. That was a challenge, and that was why, like, we were that's why we were so thankful for the mentors, because they could kind of like, they're doing the work in those fields and they were able to kind of ground us and be like, yeah, that might be, you know, double your budget, or that might be triple your budget, or like a long-term project. So yeah, very thankful for the mentors and the input that they provided, because that really helped us throughout the week, and like calling them and emailing them, and they were just like really available to us, and it was really helpful. But yeah, no, it all came together really well, and we're really proud of what we produced, and it was really awesome to see that each of our group members, you know, brought something different to the table, and an aspect that they really were passionate about. So like one thing too, like we kind of like, I don't want to say we broke the rules, but like we shifted the roles a little bit to better suit our needs. So that was one thing too, we kind of like took that creative liberty to ensure that, you know, that things weren't being missed. And I don't want to say too much more because Daniel's on my team and I don't want him to have stuff to say, so I'll pass it on.
Yeah, no, thanks, Kathleen. You know, I feel like it's something you mentioned is so important, and I mean, I just wanted to repeat it because I feel like Cando and you know, the amazing team at Cando deserves such recognition, and you know, my hat goes off to them for providing the, you know, the real life not real life mentors, the mentors with real life, you know, work experience and who were experts in their field to actually provide you with that yeah, like real world experience, rather than it just being, I mean, I know it was like a hypothetical case, but it really helped to I don't know, I guess it was really a great experience, and good to see that they had that that resource for you guys, right? Because then you could hopefully one day take the knowledge that you took in at this youth summit, and you know, the resources and the network that you gained, and use that for your careers or for your future careers, right? So I just feel like that was, yeah, my hat goes off to Cando, I guess. I just wanted to say that. And yeah, so Bianca, same question. What was your group's case study, and what was your experience from like the start of an idea to the end, basically?
So I want to be really honest right now and say the whole experience it was harder than you think it is. It's daunting at first because you understand, hey, we're not here to just relax and eat yummy food. No, we're here to work together. We're here to brainstorm. We're here to come up with a realistic business plan. And so that was daunting. And it's interesting hearing everybody's ideas and how some are realistic, some are not realistic, some kind of miss the point completely, and then almost like in a good-ish way duking it out and coming to a conclusion of this is what we're going to do. So that was my experience with it all. And I want to mention that Kathleen and Daniel, they were on the same team, and they actually placed first. For those who don't know, they placed first, and they presented a couple teams after us. We placed third, so they presented a couple of teams after us. And when we were done presenting, at least for my team, we thought, okay, we might have this. We have a good shot. And if I'm being honest, as soon as Kathleen and Daniel's team presented, I'm like, no, no, they're gonna win. That was amazing. So it was just so cool seeing everybody's ideas come together, and people even conquering their fears of public speaking. There was a woman on my team who she didn't feel like she was valuable to our team, and just watching her flourish and being able to get up there and to present, and the pride that I saw in her afterwards was amazing. So I'll leave what we did for Brayden to mention, but you already kind of know what we did. Thank you.
No, thank you, Bianca. And I think that's so great that you mentioned, because I know a lot of people are very humble, right? So I feel like it's great that you mentioned, and mentioning that for others, right? Like their accomplishments, because there are accomplishments and they deserve to be mentioned, right? Like I get it. Sometimes there's like not necessarily like a negative stigma, but there's this stigma, and it is true in a lot of situations that a lot of Indigenous peoples are very humble, and it's not natural to share your accomplishments and not boast about them, but you know what I mean, like include them. But something that I learned from I wasn't in the Indigenous coaching program myself, but I heard some advice that was taken from the Indigenous coaching program, which is basically what I'm kind of saying now, which is, Indigenous peoples are, something that a lot of us are is humble, right? But in that professional world or that professional setting and a business setting, it's something you have to kind of get used to doing, right? Is mentioning your accomplishments and being proud of yourself, because, they are accomplishments and they deserve to be spoken about. So thank you for mentioning that, Bianca. And then also something you mentioned is the conflict that you guys dealt with, right? Because it's inevitable that there's going to be conflict in when you're working in groups, especially with people from different backgrounds and from different areas of the country, from different nations, sometimes even it was inevitable. And I think that's something that I mentioned in my opening remarks, I guess, at the conference. And I'm sure you guys all experienced that firsthand, right? But I'm really glad to see that there wasn't anything there wasn't any serious negative conflict. Like nobody was getting into fist fights or anything like that, right? Like it's healthy to speak your mind, and if you have something to say it. So it's I'm really glad and I guess proud to see how everything was resolved. Obviously there was conflicts, but nothing got out of hand. And, at the end of the day, everyone left with a new connection gained, kind of a thing, right? So yeah, thanks for mentioning that. And so I'll just move down the list to Daniel. Same question. Just what was your group's case study and what was your experience from the start, in the ideation phase to the actual presentation?
Yeah, so just to build off Kathleen's answer, since we were in the same group, it was we had a living in commercial space, and so we were able to implement many of our ideas and kind of put them all together. And it was coming from a wide range of ideas for people across the country, right? We had people from BC, I'm from central area, Kathleen's from around Ontario, and then there's an individual was in sorry, it was out in not New Brunswick,
Yeah.
out east. Oh man, not coming to me right now.
Nova Scotia?
No,
Newfie.
Newfoundland, right? I don't know why that didn't come to my head. Sorry about that. And yeah, it's just a great experience. And throughout the process, yeah, there was a lot of conflict. And I know Bianca did mention that we did finish first. And even though we did, there was still conflict within the group that we had to resolve. Some of our ideas were, we were clashing with ideas, and she mentioned that we had a cutoff date, and then sometimes we'd want to implement new stuff after the cutoff date, but we're already like, no, we have to cut it off here. Otherwise we're going to have too much stress. And she also built off that idea too, that we created a new position. And then that was kind of specifically towards me. I didn't see myself contributing to the group through any of the listed available positions. So we were able to create a financial position for myself to allow me to apply my educational background and do specifically the budgeting side. That allowed me to feel comfortable within the group and to feel available and contributing. And I really enjoyed that part about that as well. And also to build off Bianca's point of learning about the other groups at the end of the projects, right? We were fortunate enough to be able to go last. So that kind of eased a lot of stress off of us. But hearing all the other presentations was very, very good for myself, because there were a lot of ideas, and as Bianca mentioned, there were some that were maybe not possible to be made, but it was a great idea, right? And you have to think about these things throughout the week. You have an idea, you have to be able to bring it to reality through this case competition, and that's something that I really enjoyed. And specifically Bianca's group, I had never even thought of that as an idea, and it could become a reality. And it touched many people. You could see throughout the entire whoever was there, everyone felt that should be implemented. So that was something I also wanted to add as well. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Daniel. And I know I also mentioned it and you mentioned it too. And that just is an attestation to, I guess, how great Bianca and her group's presentation was, along with everyone else's presentation. But I'm just saying, because you mentioned it, right? The funeral home idea, and it's just something that, again, like not everyone thinks about, but it's something that we should be thinking about and should focus on. Because if you think, I know on my home community, there isn't a funeral home owned or operated by my nation, right? It's all goes to the municipality that neighbors are reserve, and it's just not saying that they do a bad job, but it's just, it would be great to see us to reclaim that that, I guess, revenue stream, not even revenue stream, but I guess that's one way of looking at it. But just that part of reclaiming it for our own and making it our own is just so important, right? There's something else. You mentioned about playing into your strength and creating a new role. I mean, I think that was so great to see, because you never know, I guess, how you can contribute to a team, right? But at the end of the day, we do all have strengths. And I think it's great to see that, your other group members were so, I guess, supportive, right? In creating that financial role for yourself, because I feel like that just brought another factor and another component to your guys' presentation, that you did actually have the financials laid out, right? And it's just brought, it made you stand out, I guess, is what I'm saying. And so never be afraid, I guess, to play into your strengths is what I got out of that, I guess. So yeah, again, not last but not least, Brayden. So same question, what was your group's case study and what was the experience for you from start to finish?
Hi, Nathan. I was on Bianca's group. We actually had a group of we had great ideas. Now, it was hard to pinpoint one specific idea. And it really brought out the realities in planning. I guess we were able to mitigate conflict and manage conflict in our presentation. We had 18 acres to work with, and I believe that we really allowed creativity to flow in our case study. And I don't know, when you were there, you felt it, like you felt the spirit of our presentation. Our creativity was well executed. We had, I guess, to incorporate these more about my case study, we had 3 different phases. I guess the first phase, we had the gas bar, the car wash, and the restaurant to use as major revenue streams. And to gain, I guess, profits at a faster rate. And then in our second phase, we built the cultural center, canoe shacks, and trails to establish businesses in the tourism industry. Then again, we on our third phase, we built the funeral home because we felt it was important, and the meaning behind building that as well. Again, reclaiming the practices of our death tradition. That's something we need to do. And so again, we had a strong creative plan. We used all our skills. None of us had a business background, I believe. And one of our mentors actually said, they're not looking for the financial side of it, so you don't need to worry about it. And so we were like, okay. And he told us what to put in our presentations, and that's what we did. And I guess a tip is listen to more than one mentor.
Yeah, thanks, Brayden. I mean, that's great advice for any situation, right? To get different perspectives is always good, right? So yeah, no, that's great that you mentioned that, because it's just so important to get different perspectives, right? And I feel like a lot of times I guess I'm going to go a little off track here, but I mean, you know, a lot of the times when somebody comes into the community, they don't necessarily get the perspectives of all the nation, right? They'll maybe go after the elders and then maybe the chief and council and maybe some directors. But I feel like a component or a demographic that's always missed is the youth, right? And again, going back to my previous comment, is I feel like that's such an important network to tap into is our youth, because they're the ones with big dreams and big aspirations. And you know, we can turn some of those into reality. And yeah, no, thanks for that, Brayden. So we have a couple more questions here. I just wanted to mention before we hit 1 o'clock, if anybody has a hard stop at 1, don't feel bad if you have to sign off at 1. But I think what we're going to do is I'm just going to get through our questions. We're most likely going to go a couple of minutes past 1, but anyone in our audience here, or even any of the panel members, if you have a hard stop at 1, don't feel bad, don't feel obligated. You know, I understand we all have lives outside of this as well. So just wanted to mention that before I move on to my next question. So the next question is again for Kathleen. So did you have much of an understanding of economic development prior to applying or coming to the youth summit? And do you feel like you have a better grasp now if you didn't before?
Yeah, thanks, Nathan, for that question. And I'll try to keep it short and quick. I kind of alluded to previously working with my community's economic development officer, kind of doing one-day youth summits, getting our community engaged in economic development, but also like my work on my council head, we've always, you know, entertaining different economic development ventures, because that's one thing that we don't have is a lot of own source revenue to generate those funds to invest in community. So yeah, I felt like I was pretty understanding from like an entrepreneur's perspective, but also from a governance perspective. But the summit really helped me see that, you know, there's so many different projects going on. There's so many different, like, that was the first time I've ever been to like a reserve that had all of that, right? That had the casino, had the resort, had the conference center, and to just see what was possible. So for me, that's kind of what I took about it, was like, you know, all these possibilities. And even looking at like some of the mentors and the work that they're doing, and having like urban reserves and stuff like that. Like we have a city that's nearby, so it's like trying to lobby and have those conversations. Like I think that was really eye-opening for me to see all of the different possibilities, and that really helped my understanding of economic development, that there's no one way of doing it, and it's going to be community based, and it's going to be very open-ended. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathleen. And I mean, I'll also keep my comments short, but I think what you mentioned is, you know, how one thing will work for one community won't work for another. It goes back to the concept of, you know, best practices versus wise practices, right? And yeah, no, thank you for that, Kathleen. Thank you so much. Now I'll just move on to the next panel member. So Bianca, same question. What was your understanding of economic development prior to applying, and what is your understanding now?
So my understanding was very limited when I got to the youth summit. But what I didn't realize then is that, you know, if you have a dream, because my dream's not only for me, it's for everyone else. It's for my community, it's for our youth, it's for our elders, it's for all of us. What I didn't know is that the foundation of my dreams, of my goals, of my life is based upon economic development. And I quickly realized that once I got to the summit. So now that it's done, I understand completely that, yeah, what I'm aiming for my whole life is based upon economic development. So I'm really grateful for Cando and the Youth Summit for teaching me that.
Thanks, Bianca. And I mean, yeah, I think a lot of people don't think about like how much economic development has to do with pretty well everything, right? Like it's the economy, and it's just, I completely agree that I was in the same boat. I still don't know a lot. Like I'm not an expert, I guess. I know more than I knew a year ago, but I'm in no means an expert in economic development, but it's something I would like to pursue, definitely. So same question for Daniel, just what was your understanding of economic development prior to applying? And then do you feel like it's improved as a result, or what's your understanding like now?
Yeah, similar to Bianca, I was very limited before my experience at the youth summit. I hadn't really put much thought into it, to be honest. Even coming from a commerce background, there's not much discussion around economic development, right? And especially in my majors of accounting and finance, it's more towards like the post-economic development side of the financials and whatnot. But looking at it now, I was able to understand like there's a greater opportunity for it, and it's just such a wide range. And there's specifically throughout the case study, you learn like there's a lot of complications involved. Like there's a lot of thought that goes into it. A lot of ideas come out, a lot of new problems that come up, or anything that may be available. So it's allowed me to understand that there's complications, but like there's a lot of reward that comes through economic development as well. So being able to utilize this as well toward community, and to be able to see the positive things that come out is something that also the summit allowed me to envision. And it allowed me to see that this is definitely a career path that I can go towards, because I enjoyed my time at the summit. I enjoyed applying my skills toward the case competition. Although there were some difficulties, it was a great experience for myself. And I can see myself towards this career path because I actually enjoyed what I was doing. And that's something that I got out of this as well.
No, that's great to hear. I mean, I feel like, you know, we could always use more economic development officers because you're so right. You know, when the economy is doing good in a particular nation, right, the whole nation and the whole other aspects of the nationhood are going to be uplifted as a result, right? Like the social aspect, the political aspect, whatever aspect, right? I feel like it all has to do with economic development and how our economy is doing, and how like it all kind of goes back to that in some way or another, right? And you know, if we can focus on economic development as Indigenous nations or First Nations, Métis nations, Inuit nations, I feel like, you know, we'll be better as a result, right? So yeah, I completely agree. Brayden, what was your understanding of economic development prior to applying for the Youth Summit, and what do you think it's like now?
I guess so. My knowledge going into this conference or this youth summit, you know, I would like to say it's up there. It's not like I don't know it all, but the reason why I say that is because I am at a space as a youth advisor to an economic board. I do sit at those conversations, and all my learning about economic development so far has been experiential. And, you know, it kind of goes to those alludes to like, you know, like you could learn so much in school, but when you actually sit at those conversations and you do this, you have that experience, that's where the learning happens. So I guess, yeah, I knew more than most, I guess. But what I didn't know, and it was quite humbling, I got a better grasp of what it actually takes to work in economic development. You know, the awesome thing about this economic development youth summit, excuse me, is you really put on your business shoes, you tie them up, and you put on your economic developer hat, and you get the experience that resembles working on a economic development team. I mean, they really just push you in there, because like the first day of the conference, you're like, okay, we got 6 days, 5 days to work on this. And then as the days progress, you're like, oh my God, it's coming. And, you know, it's, I was very humble in that manner, that I actually understood what it took to be in economic development. Whereas instead of just sitting at the table and trying to make decisions, you know.
No, I think that's important that you mentioned, you know, the knowledge we learn in the classroom, or yeah, I guess in the classroom, doesn't always transfer over to a real life setting, right? It's there's a difference. And so I think you're so right in that, you know, that real world and that hands-on experience is where you're going to get the real knowledge and real learning experiences, right? So that's why this format of how the Youth Summit is formatted, I guess, is just so great, right? Because you get to work on those real life case studies, right? So yeah, I completely agree that real life hands-on experience is crucial, right? So we're coming in on our last question here for Kathleen. How has this experience at the Youth Summit inspired you in your educational or professional journey?
Yeah, I think the experience has definitely inspired my career path, and like how I said with that community goal and that ideal project, like just to see how realistic it could be. And like, even though I'm in the field of education, like having like a tutoring center as a component of it or something, like hearing the different ideas and stuff like that, I think those are ways to like tie in my current profession into economic development and to make it feasible, but also giving back to my community and supporting my community are really important values to me. And that's kind of, I was revisiting my notes, and that's one thing when I talked about our case study, I wanted to include, like, it was really important to us to like work with the land and not work against it. And so like using some of the natural features of the land and stuff like that, but also like the aspects of stewardship. So really incorporating our Indigenous values into the project was really important to our group. And that's something that like I'll carry with me throughout my journey to onward with economic development, and how it shapes not only my community but the communities neighboring me in the city, and just being able to see more opportunities across the nation, or across Turtle Island even, that are doing the work that aligns with stewardship and taking care of Mother Earth, but also like making sure that our people are taken care of as well. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think that's so true, right? It's not always about profits right. I mean, yes, that's a component that you need to focus on or think about, but it's not always all about, money and capital and profits, right? You have to also find the balance with taking care of the land and stewardship, as you mentioned. And I completely agree that it's all about finding that balance, especially as Indigenous, professionals, right? I feel like we're the perfect people to do so, right? So yeah, thank you for that. Same question for Bianca. Just how has this experience inspired you in your educational and or your professional career journey?
So one thing that not very many people know is that there are resources out there, there's funding out there, there's help out there, and so many of us have really great ideas. And who doesn't want to see their community flourish? Who doesn't want to give back to their community? Who doesn't want to make a positive impact in the world? So one thing that Cando really kind of reaffirmed for me is that there's resources out there and there's help out there. There are legitimate organizations, people, mentors, elders, and leaders out there who want the best for us. So like I said, when I was leaving, I was just in tears sitting at the Calgary airport, just actually crying that there's a space for me in this world, and there's a space for us. And whether we know it or want to believe it, the future looks pretty Indigenous. And I really like how Cando kind of reaffirmed that for me. So I'm so grateful for the experience. And even just, last month alone, I was sitting at an airport on my way to Vancouver, and there was a gentleman who looked so familiar to me, and I couldn't understand how, and it was bothering me. So I went up to him and I said, "You look so familiar. May I ask how?" And he said, I was thinking the same thing. He was a panelist at the summit. Jesse James, he was a part of that tax committee. I'm sorry, I can't remember his official title, but and we got to reconnect, and I got his card again. So the gifts from Cando and the gifts from the youth summit just keep giving. And again, I'm experiencing that today. So I'm just so grateful. And I really think that what I had experienced on Tsuut'ina Nation will follow me for a long time. And I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, no, like so many things you mentioned in your response there's so true. And one of them was that you know, that there is space for you and that there is resources in the form of, you know, like elders and different organizations and programs like that are owned and operated by Indigenous people. And it just brings me back to something that I was actually I had to incorporate it into like a paper I was writing earlier today. So that's why it's fresh in my mind. But it's just about the fact that, you know, we as Indigenous peoples, or sorry, let me back up. So, you know, during my time within the workforce and in the business and professional world, I've noticed that a lot of the opportunities that are given in terms of like promotions and even being hired or recruitment, those kinds of things, it's all about who your network is and who you know, or even like a lot of times there is a lot of nepotism that happens within the not the Indigenous, I'm talking the non-Indigenous professional like mainstream society. It floored me how much not necessarily like straight on bold nepotism, but it's all about, I guess, who you know, right? Like if you have a grandpa that worked for one company, then that's your in kind of a thing. So I feel like us as Indigenous peoples, you know, we don't have that advantage of having generations and generations of family who has been in these organizations, right? We're so in the last 100 years or so, right, is when we've had these opportunities to really improve our, you know, our business acumen, right? So I feel like because we don't have that, I guess, luxury of having, you know, family members that are inside all these mainstream organizations. I feel like we have to create our own family as Indigenous people through connections like these and through, events like the Youth Summit, right? I feel like building your network, I guess, is what I'm trying to get to, is just so important, especially for us as Indigenous peoples. I feel like we really have to lean into each other and really help uplift each other, because that's how we're going to succeed, right? So yeah, just thank you for mentioning that and sparking that thought, I guess. So Daniel, yeah, so what was, or how has this experience inspired you and on your educational or professional journey? Sorry.
Yeah, one thing I want to say is it gave me confidence going into my new sort of school journey in that Master's Development Practice program. I wanted to be able to get an idea as to what it meant to be TAED certified, or what I would be able to do with that certification that comes through my my education. So being able to gain confidence, and we were fortunate enough to be able to hold this conference in person. So being able to connect with people, organizations, and all of that was definitely a great opportunity for myself, and that's something I really enjoyed. Another thing is reflection, reflecting on the week, all the positives that came out of it, all the complications, all the conflict, just being able to reflect back to that. And I still do to this day. Like there's a lot of things that that happened during that week that were a great experience for myself. And that's something that I didn't get the opportunity to do before. And I really enjoyed it. And it made me feel more comfortable in those situations as well, to put myself out there more often, to go to attend more conferences, to attend more networking events, to attend more things in the future. And that's something that I really feel grateful after coming through finishing that week, and then also seeing that the future is bright. All the youth there had very, very great ideas, and they're all, you can see they have passion for economic development and passion for their own communities, being able to provide for them. And it's showing that it's going in the right direction. So that's a positive that I saw out of the week as well.
Yeah, so true. And it's funny how a lot of the things that, you know, all of you heard today, the panelists, you know, it's all kind of connected. And the things that you're saying, like what I mean is, you know, Bianca said, you know, the future looks Indigenous. And I really love that. love that saying, I guess. And then same thing with Daniel, you know, the future looks bright. And I totally agree that, you know, initiatives like this, organizations like Cando and individuals like yourselves are really going to help us move forward into this future and create a brighter future for our youth, right? To have a place, right? Capacity building is what Cando, I guess, is all about. So it just really aligns with the values, I guess, of what we're talking about today. And then again, last but not least, Brayden, how has this experience inspired you in your educational or professional journey?
This experience actually has inspired me to apply at Cando. Just kidding. No, what it actually did, I'm gonna say this is that you know, a lot of times with these big organizations, they often have, or it feels like all these Indigenous initiatives are like checkbox items. But with Cando, you know, you actually feel that they're there for us Indigenous people and they're there for us Indigenous youth. I mean, like compared to other organizations or other initiatives, I could only, you know, I guess they only have one opportunity, and once you're done with them. But with Cando, it's like, you know, I was a part of their Indigenous coaching program, and then, oh, look, they have a economic development youth summit, and now like they have scholarships and they have a youth panel, they have all these different things. You know, Cando is really there. And so how has this experience inspired me in my educational and professional journey? Well, you know, I took an education route, and in my experience, in my work experience, I have a lot of like business management, operations and whatnot. And, you know, I feel like my purpose here on earth in this lifetime is just actually, you know, inspire people, and, you know, be there for them, support as much people as I can. And it's just a way of figuring out how my education can blend with my experience and my new aspirations as an entrepreneur, and how to get that to work for people. You know, this experience has allowed me to become more aware of the business sectors and industries out there, and the spaces they do have for Indigenous people. Again, reiterating what Bianca said, our future is Indigenous. You know, this experience also exposed my weaknesses, so that I can focus on building those skills that will be required in my future career. You know, I do not study an undergrad relating to business, but I study education. You know, I could take these experiences, I could take my education, I could take the skills I'm building on, collaborate them, and make it work for me in my future career and in my future professional life. You know, I don't know exactly what I'm going to look like in a year or 2 or 3 or 5 or 10, but I know as long as my intentions are good, I'm going to be somewhere great.
Yeah, thanks so much, Brayden. Like everything all of you are saying is just like, I've been writing things down because a lot of the things that you're saying are really resonating with me, and like are really, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Very, not strong, but they're very motivating, I guess, for me. And I just really like, yeah, a lot of the things that you had to say, especially you, Brayden, in your last comment, I mean, saying, you know, that a lot of the initiatives out there are just check boxes, right? And it's just all about the optics, right? And the external view of how people are viewed in terms of like an organization. They don't actually have any meaning behind a lot of their initiatives. It's just like, oh, look at me, I hired an Indigenous person, or kind of a thing, right? So it's just like, I feel like that really is completely different to how this organization is, right? Obviously it's Indigenous owned and operated, and it's just, I don't know, that really resonated with me, I guess, because you're so right that you know, we have to be careful, not us, but there's a lot of organizations and initiatives out there, or partnerships that are that, you know, about that checking the box, and they aren't really meaningful. But with Cando, you know, I don't have to worry about that, and neither do any of the members. And it's just so great to stay connected through all of their initiatives. you know, once you're in with Cando, it's like there's always opportunities to stay involved, to stay connected, and to keep improving your skills. And then the other thing you mentioned is just about this experience exposing your weaknesses. I feel like that was so powerful. That was the word I was looking for, powerful, earlier. But yeah, it was so powerful because that's something that I live by and value, is like really you know, pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone and doing things that challenge you and make you feel uncomfortable. Because when you're in that situation, you know that, you know, one, you're either trying something for the first time or you're doing something that you're not good at, right? Which is why you're feeling uncomfortable. So if you can be okay with being in those uncomfortable settings, then it's like, it's a sign that you're improving. And it's just, it was just such a powerful statement, you know, that it exposed your weaknesses. Because yeah, I find myself in those situations on a daily basis. And I mean, it's just great to yeah, again, be on the call here, or on the panel, on the call here again, sorry, with so many great, inspiring Indigenous youth like yourselves, who all have different backgrounds and who all have so much value to bring to the table. And I just hope that anyone here watching, or anyone who's going to watch the recording, can get that out of you know, can take something away from today's experience, today's panel, because I know I did. You know, it was so great to hear from, you know, a lot of everyone on the call here today. You know, we were connected through the youth summit, and I feel like, you know, still to this day, it was months ago, but I'm still getting, you know, like notifications on my social media, seeing pictures, and it brings a good feeling inside just to reminisce about how great of an experience it was, not only in gaining connections, but also building skills, and again, like exposing your weaknesses, which you know, bringing inspiration and seeing the future as being Indigenous and bright. You know, it's just all so many like nuggets, I guess, of information and of knowledge that you guys have provided here today. So I just wanted to, yeah, just thank you all so much today for giving us your time, and yeah, really sharing your experience and sharing yeah, your strengths and your skills, as well as your weaknesses, you know, with us here today. But yeah, thank you so much to our panel. And then again, thank you to the Cando staff, as well as our sponsors. And then for our audience here today, you know, thank you for giving us your time. And yeah, thank you so much. I hope everyone has a great rest of your day, but thank you.